Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Enrique, aka the Aries Gamer. Welcome to the Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, a special podcast today. We usually broadcast Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but we have a special guest today joining us. We have game developer Greg Kasavin from SuperGiant Games. Dude, I should say good morning to you. How are
Yeah,
you today?
doing well. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Absolutely, we're excited to have you on, and I'm really excited because I've known you, or well, known of you, dating back 14, 15 years from your
Yep.
days at GameSpot when you were editor there and chief editor there, and I was a community moderator. So I think this is kind of really cool that 14, 15 years later we've kind of reconnected in ways.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a time when our forums and all that kind of stuff was really starting to pick up, and it was such a cool time at GameSpot, really, where like it felt like we were able to interact with our readers in a new way. These days, I don't know, for the idea of having like community forums, it doesn't sound particularly special, but back then it was a pretty big thing for us.
Yeah, no, it was, and I remember some of the changes that the forums went through. I think there's numerous changes to kind of improve the community, the communication, and you're right. I mean, before social media, I mean, this is kind of how we used to communicate
Yeah.
with you guys. Now, I'm on Twitter, and we just had about a month ago we had Ryan McCaffrey on from IGN, and
Yeah.
I'm communicating with him on Twitter, where 14, 15 years ago that kind of conversation would have happened, in a community forum. So yeah, it's interesting how things have kind of evolved and the impact of social media on how
Yeah.
gamers communicate. So
Yeah, definitely.
Which would you say is a nicer place to be, the forums or Twitter?
Oh, that's that's a tough one there, right? I think man, all the stuff, like I think the best analogy to it, it's like tools, right? They can be used for good or for ill,
True.
for creation or for destruction. And I think as someone who's been using the internet since basically since I was a kid, like in the early-ish 90s.
mhm.
There's always been like a nasty undercurrent to it, but as it's popular and more accessible, and these tools like Twitter are like more efficient in a way. The bad side of it can spin out of control in a worse way than before, but the positive side of it is can be more pronounced also. So it's kind of like I think I have made peace with certain aspects of it over the years, and
hmm
know when to kind of try to pull away from it when it's getting to be too much for me personally to handle. But it's been a huge part of my life one way or another, so I love it on the whole, and I think Twitter has let me. For me, it's been really cool too, as someone who just admires a lot of people in the game industry whose games I've played or who've worked on games. The aspects of games that I really enjoy. It's just great to be able to, as some random person, just be like, "Hey, that was great, thank you." Just thank random people in a way that I haven't been able to do in the past. So I like that aspect of Twitter a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, we've been able to do that with some developers too, and I think through the power of social media, we were able to to get David Jaffe on our podcast, and I mean that was just
Yeah.
mind blowing. I mean the guy behind Twisted Metal, and
Yeah.
yeah, and he was on the podcast with us. I'm like, wow, and that all happened. That was facilitated initially through social media.
Yeah, you can just ask, and it's like it didn't used to be that simple, right?
No, and I was like, I was really surprised because we're not a large podcast by any stretch of the imagination. We've been around less than a year, but it was just it was mind blowing. And even with Ryan McCaffrey reaching out to him on Twitter, I mean, it was just yeah, we didn't have that kind of access back in the day. So
Right.
yeah, but before we get into the podcast here, I do want to introduce another special guest, actually a recurring guest. Bella Rise from Real Game Media has decided to, kind enough, actually, I should say, to join us today, even though it's 4 o'clock in the morning in Australia. Bella is the chief, or the editor-in-chief at Real Game Media. Bella, good morning, and thank you again, by the way.
Good morning. You are welcome, and you owe me.
Does that mean we're going to run Destiny after this? No?
Once you get your light up, yeah.
Oh, that's tough. My light's only 26.
Life is tough.
Especially at 4 a.m.
I'm not gonna even mention what my light number is. Then screw that.
Yeah, I don't even think Eric's
I
level
don't
40. Yeah, and without further ado,
no, I am level 40. Come on.
okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, you are level 40. You're right. And without further ado, broadcasting live from sunny South Florida, Eric Jackson, also of Real Game Media, who's also a regular co-host on Basement Radio Arcade. Eric, what's up, man?
Not too much, man. Just happy to be here. Happy to be talking to Greg. Happy to have Bella on. Let's do it.
Yeah, and it's Friday. That's the best part. So
You're living in the past, man.
Oh yeah,
we are. Bella's in
So Greg, for those of our viewers who aren't familiar with you, your background, can you tell us a little bit about where your career started in the gaming industry and how you transitioned from gaming journalism to now making games?
Yeah. Basically, I started writing about games fresh out of high school. I'm one of those people. I've been I guess kind of obsessed with games pretty much my whole life, and I always wanted to make them since I was a little kid, like 8 years old or something like that. Playing the old Ultima role-playing games. It really inspired me, but I was always playing arcade games and computer games and console games and basically whatever I could get my hands on. But when I tried, I tried to take up programming on a number of occasions, and it didn't really stick with me. But I always really loved writing, so I started writing about games, just kind of for fun, I guess, to try to make something of it in high school, and eventually I started working on back at that time what were like printed fanzines, like actual print them out on paper and snail mail them to people, so it feels like ancient history. But it led to some small time gigs, and eventually I started doing some website stuff on my own, and that eventually led to an internship at a just launched website called GameSpot. This is back in 1996, so I was like 1 year out of I was like in my first year of college, so it was like a part-time thing. But it was really cool. It was really exciting to be a part of something like that. I got to write about games like on a pretty regular basis. And I ended up staying at GameSpot for more than 10 years, which certainly I wouldn't have anticipated at the time, and was editor-in-chief at the end. So I left GameSpot at the beginning of 2007 to go work at Electronic Arts on the Command and Conquer series. That was like it turned out to be a former colleague of mine from GameSpot named Amir Ajami. He was working there already, and always knew that I had always had an interest in making games myself, and he let me know about the opportunity, and I went for it, and I got it. So that's when it's kind of crazy now, because in a couple of months it'll be my 10-year mark in game development. So I will have been making games for as long as I was at GameSpot, pretty much, which doesn't, that this time feels like it's gone by. I don't know. It all goes by very quickly. But that's basically after EA, I worked on several real-time strategy games there. I then worked at 2K Games for a year on a game called Spec Ops: The Line. And then I worked, I joined my former EA colleagues at SuperGiant, where I am now, where we've worked on Bastion and Transistor, and are now working on a game called Pyar. We're a small team there. So this SuperGiant was like sort of the fulfillment of all the stuff that I wanted to do since I was 8, getting to like write stories for games and just kind of get my hands dirty making them, as it were, as part of a small team.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I mean, I think about you brought up 1996, and I can relate to that time because I was 19, I think, at the time, and I remember the internet was kind of getting its legs so
Yep.
to speak. AOL was kind of big. Well, was big.
Yeah.
And gaming media sites were and other media sites were kind of new. And so what was that like? I mean, you fairly early on in your career to kind of be part of that. I mean, before you went online, we were talking about the impact of social media on gaming and interaction in the gaming community. But I mean, what was that experience like overall in terms of just like, was it kind of a trial and error thing where you guys were trying new different things, and because it never had been done before?
Yeah, I mean, there was always, for sure, there was a lot of experimentation at different times. Like, not only did GameSpot, I think, help pioneer just like online coverage of games. It certainly wasn't the only site doing it. It always had competitors, trying to kind of push the format and figure out what online game coverage, even could be, because back then the standard was print publications. These magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly and Next Generation and Game Pro and a lot of these publications that are no longer around at this point. So it was faced with a certain level of kind of. It actually reminds me a lot of how like YouTubers and streamers are seen today now by like tradition. Now traditional media is like online media, and they kind of sometimes I get the impression that YouTubers and stuff are kind of looked down upon, and that was like what it was back then with print kind of looking down on online gaming press, like thinking it was giving the insinuation that it was kind of less legitimate because it wasn't on paper or it wasn't traditional or something like that. But we were always trying to do new stuff, and I think like one of the really big things was what we did with video over a long period of time. A team headed up by a guy named Ryan McDonald over a long period of time, and
I remember Ryan. Yep.
Yeah, and it was all the GameSpot. We did live shows, we did pre-recorded shows, we did tournaments, like all just trying to do all kinds of crazy stuff with video. Even just like posting gameplay footage and trailers, stuff that's like very normal now. But this was, it's hard to imagine a time before YouTube and whatever else, but YouTube like didn't exist back then. So we're kind of providing a pretty cool service and just seeing what we could do with that, trying to get people closer to games and help them, help them make the best choices with their kind of time and money, I guess.
Yeah. No,
I think there's an important message in there for gamers who are listening at the moment, which, to see that your passion for video games can be taken and put into word. That word can be then taken and put onto a website if you can articulate what you're trying to say well enough. And then you're now on a platform where it gives you exposure not just to gamers, but to developers. And from there, you can create relationships, which can then be a stepping stone to getting you into actual game development. It is achievable. You don't have to go to university for 20 years and come out the other side of it. Your passion for games alone can be enough to help you get into the industry.
Yeah, there are a lot of. There is kind of no traditional way in. Practically everyone I know who works in game development just has a pretty different story, and I get that question pretty frequently of like, how do I get started? And I think it's both very difficult to get in, but also but the good news about it is that that's because in a lot of ways the barrier to entry has never been lower. So it's kind of like you could just start doing the work. Waiting for permission or waiting until you have what you feel like is the adequate training, is like it's not gonna. Waiting won't achieve anything. I think you could just instead just teach yourself how to do it. In my case, I did I really fell in love with the writing about games, and I didn't think I'd ever go back. I didn't think I'd ever sort of get into development, considering how far in on the editorial side of things I got. But if I were getting started today, I would probably just try to pick up Unity or Game Maker or whatever, and just teach myself and start making stuff as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So
would you say?
Go ahead, Eric.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was saying. would you say, like, even though you may have a passion for one particular thing, it's good to know the language of kind of the whole process? Like you just suggested, you know, maybe picking up Unity, even if you want to be a writer, even if you want to focus more on that, you know, just so you can speak the language.
Well, I think for, you know, it's one of those tough balancing acts. I think for sure the more you know, the better, right? Just straight up. The more you could read, even just, first of all, there's like an unlimited amount of knowledge you could have just about game development or like game writing, editorial, and then there's the whole rest of the world too, where it's kind of important to, you know, kind of take in other stuff from time to time too. Read fiction, read nonfiction. All of it is just going to help either directly or indirectly. So it's I think one of the real challenges is like finding that balance between specializing and generalizing, because like having a broad breadth of knowledge, like being a generalist, is very valuable, but it's also really good to be the best in the world at something. And how are you going to do both those things? You know, I don't think anyone really has the answer to that. You have to kind of follow your intuition, but when you can find the thing that you are really passionate about, it's gonna, that passion is what can help you, you know, past some of the hurdles of how difficult it's going to be to sort of excel in that regard. So that's certainly what always has kept me going. I just loved games, kind of at the end of the day, so I was willing to just kind of do whatever.
Right.
Bella, I can hear what you said, Bella. Did you say amen?
Yeah. Amen.
Amen to love games. Exactly. So, Greg, so where do you draw a lot of your inspiration for writing in games? Is it come from, fictional novels, movies, games, a combination of all three?
It's gotta be everything, right? I find it's really hard for me to answer that, because it is so many different things, I think. And I'm sure a lot of it is just my own upbringing and stuff too, whatever life experience I have had, and my view of things in general. But there are certain stories that have always resonated with me over the years, and many of those do come from games. But I've always believed in the kind of the power of games, as both as an like in their ability to tell stories, and just in general, just the interactivity of games being their defining quality, right? Because games are almost impossible to sort of categorize. Like they could come in any different shape or size and so on, and they're all valid as games. But what they do have in common is their interactivity and their kind of like electronic nature, right? When we're talking about video games, so I just draw a lot of like some games have just stuck with me forever, for sometimes for big reasons and sometimes for really small and kind of random reasons. And my list of inspirations there just goes very, very long, down into like whatever things that certain fighting game characters say to like major story points in major games. You know, it's just all kinds of different stuff. Not to mention books I've read and movies I've seen and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I think a really good analogy to use for it, it's kind of like, like with a really, really good mechanic, there's just something about cars that clicks with them, that ignites a passion inside of them. It's the same for us as writers or gamers, particularly the gamers who turn into writers. There's something about video games that just ignites that passion inside of you, that keeps you interested in coming back for more and wanting to engage on every single level. Like it's not so much, I think, that we like writing. I think it's more that we have that passion for video games inside of us, that we have to express it any way and every way we can. It lights that fire within us.
I agree. I agree with that. I think, like, for me, it's a form of communication. Like, I'm not what one would call a social person. And I worked at GameSpot, all through the time when like a more typical person, whatever. I never like lived on a college campus or something like that. I was just like kind of working away at GameSpot all through the days when, I was like very envious of I remember feeling very envious of my college classmates, because they're like, I got this impression that they're all having fun, and I'm just kind of like showing up to class and then go and do my job. And then at the end of college, it's like, wait a minute, everyone's envious of me because I have a job, and they're like really afraid because they're English majors just like me. And what's the path forward? So it was a strange perspective shift, for sure. But yeah, for me, it's like, when it came to games, I could just connect with people in a way that I couldn't do so in other walks of life. And writing for games, getting to create stories for games now, like for me, that's an even sort of deeper way to connect and interact with people. And with some of the letters that we've gotten based on the games we've made, for me, it's like, wow, I've never been able to affect people that way. And that's a very, I don't get that feeling very often, but when it happens, it's kind of it makes it all worth it. And I feel like I finally did something, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of like, so
makes total sense.
As often as I can experience that, the better. And it like, much like video games themselves, it can becomes an addiction. I want to just be able to keep making stuff that can hopefully impact other people the way games have impacted me. I just want to create that feeling myself that I know games are capable of having on people.
That's great.
The beautiful thing about the games industry is there's no limit. There's literally no cap to what you can come up with, or where you can go outside of how much trouble you're going to get in if you roll with a game about that particular subject matter. But the universe is just so large and immersive that once you get sucked in, there is no coming back out. Like once you're in there, and you can just see how interactive and vast the entire industry is, it becomes like a drug.
You sound like you're describing Destiny there, Bella.
You know what? When you messaged me about the time that this podcast was due to go live, I thought you either hate me or you're trying to kill me, because A, you're getting me up at 4 a.m. and B, that is the exact time the new raid rolls out in Rise of Iron.
Exactly.
He has an evil plan. He respects you to the point where he's willing to wake you up, but then also try to rope you into Destiny after the podcast. Exactly. He's got it all mapped out.
There's a plan behind this.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, my shoulders are a little bit sore from last time we played Destiny, and I just.
So moving on, as they say.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to touch. I know we're going to get into this, but I'll say, like, the worlds that SuperGiant Games have crafted. Beginning with Bastion and going into Transistor and upcoming Pyar. Greg, you guys have definitely put your stamp on gaming with a style of first narration and storytelling, but also just an aesthetic and a look, and it's immersive. And I would definitely say you guys do connect with gamers in a way that's unparalleled. And I'm speaking for myself. I love your games.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a huge. It really helps knowing that. When we're kind of in the thick of it, because I've worked on games where people haven't been excited for what we're doing, like players out there, you put it out there and people are like, I don't know. And when people kind of believe in you and want you to succeed, it really can help. Really helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it can be easy because gamers, gamers are a fickle bunch. I will say that.
Oh, they're the most self-entitled people in the world, but we love them.
Oh my God. Yeah. What makes
very opinionated?
Yep.
It's funny a lot.
Have you been on this thing called Twitter before, Enrique?
Yes, armchair developer.
Yeah, you know the answer to that question.
Yes, armchair developers. Yes. Yeah, to kind of piggyback off what Eric said, Greg. I mean, I have a fond appreciation for what you guys have done. Actually, I just. Truth be told, I just started playing Bastion about a week and a half ago, and I did pick up Transistor 2. but it's I've been gaming since 1981.
Nice.
So I was like 4 or 5 years old. I started gaming on the Atari with
Yeah.
Space Invaders, and I had that experience with my dad. My dad was a gamer for a little bit, playing the Atari with my older sister, who's 7 years older than me, and I picked up Bastion, and I was playing it, and I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, a newborn too. But the two boys immediately came downstairs, and Greg, just the look on their face watching me play Bastion, like they were just like in total awe.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and it took me back to my childhood, and kind of reminded me why I game. I game because of that kind of that connected experience. I feel like I don't at least get from watching movies, or reading books. And it's kind of an escape for me in a lot of ways from the craziness of life and the harsh realities of life. And I have a family, but I also work. The Basement Radio Arcade podcast is a labor of love for me, but gaming to me is kind of like kind of my escape, and to see my kids, and now they refer to Bastion as the kid game, as they
Well, that's appropriate.
Yeah. They're like, "Where's the kid? We're gonna play that game," and they're just sitting there. But just to watch the look on their face, and my 7-year-old's actually started playing it now, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so I'm a big fan. I just want to say that I'm going to geek out here and say I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing.
No, right? Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's actually, I mean, when we were trying to figure out what our studio, like what we even wanted to do as a studio, because we kind of started making Bastion for, like, we didn't even know what the studio was going to be called, and then we're like, oh, we should announce this video game, and people are going to ask, what are we called? We have to come up with something. We're like, what we settled on was this idea is that we want to make games that spark your imagination like the games you played as a kid. So what you just said is like pretty perfect for that. That's kind of like what we want to. I really relate to the thing you said, where for sure for me an important aspect of games is the part where they're kind of an escape from things, go into imaginary worlds and kind of experience a new set of problems and hopefully be able to solve those. There's something very empowering about it, right? Where you, like, in the world of games, you have problems, but you could fix them. You just kind of bash your head against it for long enough, you're going to fix the problems. You're going to move on, and I've always found that very.
Unless you're Assassin's Creed.
Sorry. Oh my god.
but you know what I mean. But yeah, there's something I've always enjoyed that, and I think that we've enjoyed working on games that are like, while they're not strictly meant for younger players, they're like suitable for players of all ages. Also, we want to make the kinds of games that people can play with their kids or their significant others or whatever. Even if they're something like Bastion, it's a pure single player game, but it's something that it's great when people can kind of experience it with people they care about, because whether from the story aspect or the presentation and all that.
Yeah, and it's cool because it reminds me of back in the days when I would sit down with my friends. My son and I, we passed the controller back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's what we used to do. Growing up gaming, that's what you did. You would, sit down and you guys would take turns trying to beat a level, and that was it. But it's interesting with the industry now, and I think about the GameSpot days and how much the industry's changed. And Eric, I think we had this conversation maybe a couple podcasts ago about, it almost seems like nowadays you just have AAA games, and then you just have indie games, and there's nothing kind of in the middle, it feels like. What are your thoughts, Greg, on how the industry's changed in the last 10 years since you've been at SuperGiant?
Yeah, it's I think you're really onto something, but I think it has been shifting again. Like, it's always moving in shifts that are kind of, in some ways, they're influenced both by kind of the culture at large and also by like the kind of the business reality of the time. So like around these days, like independent games are very common, right? Like, no one who actively plays games like isn't aware of independent games. They may still only play whatever, Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed and stuff, but they at least
There's nothing wrong with Call of Duty.
No, there isn't. I think like 10 years ago, independent games were kind of more unknown and fringe by like the typical game player. Whereas today, I think everyone has at least heard of this stuff. But it's all blending together now. Back then in 2007, 2008, there was like a big economic downturn, and a lot of big game studios, they were closing like on a weekly basis. It was like a really dark time kind of for the game business.
Yeah.
A lot of storied studios were just shutting down, the kind of middle tier, and the very big guys like Activision and so on, and EA, they survived. But where did a lot of these other people go? They went and formed independent studios, or they're working in smaller teams, because digital distribution platforms like Steam made it so that you didn't need like a worldwide publisher, distributor, or whatever to get your game into the hands of people out there. So that's kind of like, I think that's the long and the short of why there are more games by smaller teams. But I also think those smaller teams have been creeping up in size again, and now you look at some of those, like the term indie, I think, is like pretty. To me, it doesn't mean anything, and hasn't for or like it means something, but it means this vague like kind of aesthetic thing, and the term has been like it's been so heavily co-opted and stuff that it's just kind of like. My analogy for a long time has been like alternative music in the 90s. It's like when every radio station, when all there is alternative music, it's like not alternative anymore. So I think indie games, in air quotes, it sort of got there. So whatever, the labels don't matter. What matters is like the variety of stuff that is out there and who's making it. And I think while there's always work to be done and more territory to be explored for sure in terms of subject matter, I think like the variety of games out there these days has never been kind of more interesting. There's just a lot of stuff happening across the board, games of all different kinds. So it's impossible to keep up, really. It's just a question of knowing where to look and finding the kinds of games that you care about the most. So sometimes I hear from people who are like, they seem very jaded about the state of things in games, and it's like, man, you're just not looking in the right places, in my opinion. Like there's amazing stuff out there. So when people like complain that, oh, games are all just Call of Duty or military shooters or something, it's like, dude, you got to be kidding me. Like you're just not paying attention. You're not paying attention.
Yeah, so, there's so much more. Yeah, that's
it actually drives me crazy when I hear people say that. I'm like, stop.
I mean, it's fine. Like on the one hand, I get it, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of like celebrate find the interesting stuff and celebrate it rather than like complaining about the big, whatever. It's so like passe to just complain about big AAA games. It's like they're just. In the grand scheme of things, they're a pretty small part.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah, I don't know that they are anymore.
No, they are. We'll introduce you to a few people on Twitter. But I mean, we're just on the cusp of another massive shift in the gaming industry again, with the introduction of VR that's going to now come and take the new kid on the block sort of role with these new experiences that we're having come through. Is VR something that you guys are looking to tap into?
VR hasn't been like we make games. We like to think we make games in sort of in many ways like a traditional way. Like we're really interested in making 2D games. Like we like to operate in this imaginary parallel universe where in the 90s, rather than the PlayStation like eating the lunch of the Super Nintendo and the Genesis or whatever, that people kept making. People kept making 2D games, and what would they be like today? So I think like VR isn't super appropriate for the kind of stuff that we make, but we're like really interested to see what other people do with it, and we certainly haven't ruled it out as a thing or anything. It's just like the kind of games that we make are we don't see it as super compatible like today. But I think I think the thing about VR is it's going to like open new avenues and opportunities for different types of games. It's like really not something where it just takes over, and now all games are VR games. You know what I mean? It's like it creates some new facets, but I don't think it's something where, you know, people always feel threatened by new technology, right? Whether it's like, oh, you know, Angry Birds, every game's going to be a mobile game now. Every game is going to be a free-to-play game. It's like it doesn't happen that way. The game industry expands, and like when there's a new technology, it doesn't have to exist at the expense of an old technology. So like in my case, nothing is ever going to replace like the feeling of like pressing a button on a controller. Like it just, you can't, like a touch screen does not replace that for me. So I have faith that games involving the pressing of buttons and the moving of controllers will like always exist. They're never going to go away. In my opinion.
Absolutely. It's like when 3D came into cinemas. And this is an analogy that I use for it all the time. Everybody thought that 3D was going to be the way that we were going to see it now. And you look at it now, and basically you have the option of standard, or you can go into another theater for the same movie and have the option of standard or 3D. The 3D option is outweighed by you can have both. You know, it's people 9 times out of 10, they want to go and they want to sit down and relax and watch the movie. They don't want to have these glasses on their face and be worried about all that extra added fluff. They want to sit down and enjoy the traditional experience that they're used to, that they're going to the cinema for. And that's going to be the same as standard video gaming. We as gamers, particularly those of us who grew up gaming, want that traditional gaming experience. And we want to see it evolve and change and have these little options here that we can dash off and every now and again watch our 3D movie version of it. But we're always going to want that traditional gaming experience.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The
and the cops are coming for Eric.
Yes. Eric, is that you, man? South Florida, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Miami.
so no, I always thought
VR
was kind of just a complement to the overall gaming experience. And you know, it's interesting. I think VR is really going to find a niche, maybe in the horror genre in gaming. Like you know,
it's perfect Bella, there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Bella, did you play Resident Evil in VR? No.
I haven't played it in VR. I played the VR, the demo that's basically meant to get you ready for the VR version of it. And that wasn't even VR. And I felt the fear in the pit of my stomach. It was incredible. I was petrified playing this little demo. I'm not entirely sure I'm up for the VR version of that game. I may actually have a coronary playing it.
I really hope people go see their surgeon before they start.
You must sign a medical disclosure before playing this game.
Man.
I tell you, I don't play horror games in general. I will not touch them on VR.
I love horror games. I love horror games. But the way that they've gone about this demo, like they just have put it in such a brilliant format that no matter where you're going or what you're doing, you can it gets so quiet in some parts you can almost hear your heart beating. Like it's really, really well done. For anybody who hasn't actually tried it out yet, go and have a look at it, because it will change the way that you think about what your experience on VR in horror games will be. And I can't wait. I'm probably gonna have to sleep with the lights on for about a month, but I can't wait.
Yeah, that doesn't sound exciting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Greg, I want to kind of transition here, another industry-related topic, before we get back to what you guys are working on currently. So what are your thoughts on console iterations? Because Sony just announced the PlayStation 4 Pro, beefed up PlayStation 4. We know about the Xbox Scorpio, which is supposed to be coming out in 2017, and for all intents and purposes, I mean this is really new in the gaming industry for game consoles. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a good thing for the industry? Is it a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out pretty soon, right? One way or another. It's interesting. I think a big part of it is just kind of like it's being positioned more prominently. The idea that so like even back to the old like Xbox 360 days, there were a ton of like subtly different versions of the Xbox 360 over the years. They just kind of like didn't make it publicly known. They were so updating the hardware over time is actually nothing new, because they figure out how to make how to like basically cut costs for cut their production costs like over the console's life cycle, and they they're making their system more efficient and stuff like that, and starting to pack it in with bigger hard drives. So on some level there are aspects of this that have like happened historically. On the other hand, yeah, there are these analogies to like, oh, and am I going to have to upgrade my console every 2 years just like a cell phone and stuff like that. I think this is still experimental, and they'll kind of look at what the customer reaction is and so on. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I don't really have a strong opinion about it. I think that like over time, console gaming and PC gaming has like conflated in a weird way, and there are aspects of PC gaming today that are like in a lot of ways actually PC gaming today to me is more like old school console gaming, where if I get a game on Steam, I feel like I could be playing it in seconds. It's like almost more of like a plug and play experience. Whereas like the traditional view of PC gaming is like, oh, you're gonna have to upgrade your drivers and get a new video card and do all this stuff. Whereas today that sometimes you have that experience on console of having to get like some 4 GB day one patch and blah blah blah, update your system software, all this kind of stuff that can be cumbersome. So I think it's kind of all the same, and it's kind of like you get your game for whichever platform you're like most comfortable playing on, and PC, console, same difference. It's mostly the same games in all places. And if you don't have a PS4 today and they release a more powerful one in like a month or two, it's like, yeah, why not get a more powerful one where the performance is going to be a little bit better and stuff like that. As to whether the PS Pro is going to be like reason enough for an existing PS4 owner to want to go and upgrade. I mean, that's kind of the burden is going to be, I guess, on both the hardware and the software to like make it seem impressive enough to where someone wants to do that. But I don't know if I suspect they mostly just want to kind of keep with the times and keep making it a compelling offer for new customers, as opposed to trying to get everyone to get rid of their old PS4 and buy a new one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's a brilliant time for them to have a console coming into the market. I mean, because like if you're going to continue to delay like all your AAA games, you've got no games to put on the shelves, you might as well have a console to sell, right?
Yeah, I would also rather, I mean, I think like I would rather have like iterations on the existing consoles than just like the PlayStation 5 or whatever. There's like, I don't know what I think this last console transition, it was kind of, on the one hand, the previous console generation was the longest console generation ever, right? With the Xbox 360 and PS3, and even still, it was like a pretty rough transition, right? In a lot of ways, like there weren't a ton of, just some real growing pains. I think that's like not super controversial.
Both for the console and for the gamers as well, because we're taking people off one piece of plastic that they've been gaming on for 10 years for some of us.
Yeah, and none of your old games.
That's been a part of our lives. For some people, that's a third or even a half of their life that they've been gaming on that one console.
And none of your old games work anymore.
UX. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, Greg's a great point. You're right. None of the games were. Well, I mean, some now with backwards compatibility.
Yeah, but it's like a slow process that wasn't like a priority. Yeah, for me, that's like a surprising. Like when you upgrade your new phone, you expect all of your old software to work. The idea that like, oh, you got an iPhone 7 and none of your old stuff works on it anymore, that would be unconscionable. That sometimes happens with like whatever. It can happen sort of selectively, but I think that's part of why Steam has been such kind of like a comfortable place to play games for such a long time. Is like you just have this growing library, you have this sense of comfort that whether it's real or not, you have this sense of comfort that those games are always going to be there for you. It's not like there's going to be a, there isn't going to be like some console update and now all the Xbox Live Arcade games you bought for the Xbox 360, they're just like gone. So
that's right. Like Steam is a constant. It's always going to be there in its same entity, just slowly evolving. It's your PC hardware that you choose to update at a point in time that is convenient for you. Steam will remain the same.
Yeah, and so it makes, I think for me as a customer, it makes me more inclined to just like buy more stuff there, and you sometimes even have this experience of like, oh, I bought this game for dirt cheap on sale. I'm not even going to play it right now. I just like
no, right? It's so cheap. I have to buy it because it's so cheap.
Yeah. Or like I'll play it later, right? I have it. It's almost like buying an insurance policy. It's like it's there for me.
I'll buy that for 13 cents, even though I'll never play it. But it's 13 cents.
But and that
you have to buy it.
Yeah, and that feeling is worth the 13 cents, right, or whatever. Like I could play this at any point, and I feel good about that.
And what a bargain, because everybody loves getting themselves a good bargain.
That's so true.
There is something to the game hunter. It's like you find a price, you're like, I'm all over it. I have 400 games to play, and I'm never gonna get to it, but it's there.
Yeah. So like back to the question you asked, I think if these hardware updates like help keep these consoles kind of thriving for longer, then I think it's great. So I'll be curious to see how it all plays out, and it's kind of hard to tell at the moment. And the PS4 Pro, it's like when they announced the date in November, I'm like, whoa, that was sooner than I expected. But
I think a lot of us thought it was going to come out maybe early 2017.
Next year,
yeah.
Well, that's why they had to move, Horizon Zero release, Zero Dawn, and The Last Guardian out of the way to make room for the Pro. Has to have its moment in the light.
Yeah, right. Well, The Last Guardian's coming December now? Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
2017. 2017.
No, the Last Guardian.
2017.
The Last Guardian will come out when my daughter graduates college.
Don't say that. Don't say
it's getting there. It's getting there.
It must be almost there.
It's getting to.
Yeah.
I mean, we always knew there was going to be one last delay, right? It had to happen. And I think they're doing it just for shits and giggles too. They're like, let's just see what happens
for old time's
if we
sake.
delay it by a month. What do you reckon? Like, let's just do April Fool's early and delay The Last Guardian by a couple of months.
Yeah, why not? Hey, they've already waited like 8 years. Who cares at this point?
How far do you guys think we can go with this thing? Let's delay it again. Let's see what happens.
Exactly.
Like a reality.
Exactly.
Well, they're getting away with it, Final Fantasy, so,
Well.
Yeah, Final Fantasy gets a pass all the time, it seems.
No. So we got to stop as gamers. We got to stop giving them passes on things like this. If you're going to deliver something, you need to deliver on it. And I think that we made this issue for ourselves as well as a community. We're so demanding about wanting to know everything now. We want to know every last detail about when the game's coming out, what my pre-order bonuses will be, what kind of microtransactions will there be, will there be co-op, can I use my steering wheel? We want to know everything, like 4 years before the game's even in alpha. And then we complain about how long it takes to come out, and then it's not polished, and there's a problem with it, and I want my money back, and No Man's Sky, let's move on. It's just a never-ending circle.
No, how it works is we want to know 4 years in advance when this game is coming out, and if it gets delayed, then we're pissed.
Gamers can be a fickle bunch. I'm okay with delays. I really am. I am. I'd rather a game come out launch not broken and run smooth and not have any issues. I would rather that be the case than that's
fine too. I would rather that as well. I think everybody would rather that if they, particularly for me, if I'm going to go and buy a AAA game, for example, I'm putting down $99.99 Australian dollars. It's a massive amount of money that we play for a big game. I want to know if I'm going to go and put down $100, then I'm going to walk home with a game that I can put in. It's not going to take me half a day for my day one update, and then it's going to run smoothly, and then I'm going to be able to connect to the servers. And that is a realistic expectation for $100. Now, unfortunately, this day and age, we are becoming more accepting as a community of games that launch without the servers up and running, that launch with massive day one patches, that there's all these different issues. Now, as a gamer, we literally don't have to have any understanding of why these things happen. We literally are entitled to be pissed off that we spent this much money on a game that we thought should be shippable on day one. Outside of that reality, though, there's also this other stuff going in play where publishers are forcing developers to get these games out the door sooner than they're ready. So they have no choice but to do these day one patches, and the alphas and the betas end up running longer than they think, or more problems get identified than what they thought they were. So it takes longer to get all that stuff fixed. And there's so much going on behind the scenes. But as a gamer, we don't need to see behind that curtain. We don't need to worry about anything that goes on behind that curtain. That's our job as developers. We deal with that. The gamers, they just get to sit down with their piece of plastic and enjoy the experience. So there's two sides to the coin there that just, it's frustrating. I'm preaching to the choir when it comes to you anyway.
Message.
Breathe. Message. Yeah. Well, we know gamers have like a hard focus on hardware. It seems like hardware and power as of late, as opposed to games, but we can transition back into talking about games because, again, we have Greg here and they still make games at SuperGiant.
Yes. So, Greg,
fun games.
Yes, fun games. So, Greg, you mentioned the third game you guys are working on right now. I believe that's slated to release 2017?
Yep, next year sometime.
Okay. So, can you tell our viewers a little bit more about your third game? And I don't know how much you can share with us, but maybe.
No, of course. Yeah, we just showed the game like for the second time, I guess, at PAX West just a few weeks ago. The game's called Pyar. We announced it earlier this year, and it's a game about leading a band of exiles to freedom through a series of ancient and mystical competitions where they have to kind of battle against other exiles whose own freedom is at stake. So it's another. Each of our games has been set in an original setting of some sort. This one is also it's a new setting. It's like a fantasy, kind of a old feeling fantasy themed world, where these kind of characters of all different shapes and sizes are having to take part in this weird and secretive mystical competition. We wanted to make a game like our previous games, Bastion and Transistor. They're both focused on very small numbers of characters. You play as essentially one specific character in each of those games. But we really enjoy making characters and making the worlds of our games. And one of the early thoughts on Pyar was like, let's make a game with a larger cast. Let's make a game like with an ensemble cast instead of kind of one main character in it. And that led to just a lot of ideas of this game where it almost has like a fantasy road trip kind of feel of these characters that are on the road together for a long period of time, bonding together, developing relationships and so on, so that you hopefully the player can feel kind of very invested in this group of characters and feel like you can you have a stake in what happens to them, and through the course of your actions in the game you'll find out what happens to them. That was all very exciting for us, and just kind of this premise of these characters having to collaborate both to achieve their personal goals, but also to achieve like a shared goal. So having to work together to succeed.
Well, and I'll say that game too. I saw the launch trailer for it, and I watched a little bit of. I think Polygon had the first 20 minutes of gameplay, and visually that game looks great. It has that nice. It just has such a nice like artistic appeal to it, which, by the way, like we talked about, smaller developers earlier. I really feel like indie developers are really pushing that creative envelope in games, which is a big reason why I've more recently kind of gravitated to playing some of the games from some of the smaller developers, as opposed to playing the Call of Duties, which I'm not a big fan of, Bella. Like I recently played Inside, and I don't know if you played
Inside,
that, Greg.
Yeah, I love Inside. Yeah, I thought that game was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean it's probably one of the best games I've played this console generation.
Mhm.
And I say that to
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Sometimes they look at me like I'm
Yep.
crazy.
No, I totally I agree with that for sure. It's one of the best games I've played this year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it just
Yeah, I agree.
it just for me like we talked about that escaping from a reality, if you will, from the hustle and bustle of life. That was that game for me. I was just like so immersed in. I was like, and I was blown away. But yeah, this game, it looks, again, Greg, it looks great. You guys have that kind of like artistic style that at least I've come to accustomed to expect from SuperGiant. So yeah, keep doing what you guys are doing. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, our art Gen Z, our art director, I think does really extraordinary work, and we have a team of 3 artists, and yeah, our art team, Jen and Josh and Camilo. It's just like 3 people doing all that stuff. They're a big source of inspiration day in and day out. As they just kind of like that's one of the fun parts of working at a small. We're like a dozen people all in all. We were 7 on Bastion, so we've grown a little bit over time. But it's cool to see these kind of whole worlds come to life through the work of just a small number of people. That's one of those things that keeps my own motivations high day in and day out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Greg, before we wrap up, we typically go through the panel and ask everyone what games they're playing. So as our special guest today, what games have you been playing more recently?
Well, my bread and butter game for a long time now has been Hearthstone. That's just the game where if I'm like putting my kids to bed or something like that, I could just, since I have it on my phone, if I have like 10 minutes here and there, yeah, I'm in deep on Hearthstone and have been playing that game for a long time now. So it almost doesn't count, but on the other hand, I feel like I have to mention it. I guess I played Inside I played it almost right when it came out, so it's been a little while now. I've been back into, like, I love fighting games a lot, and so I played a lot of Street Fighter V earlier this year, and a game called King of Fighters 14 came out more recently, and I've been playing a lot of that when I've had time, and that game has been a big, like, pleasant surprise for me. I was one of the I could talk about this forever. I should probably stop. But the makers of King of Fighters,
go.
The Neo Geo was like my favorite game system back in the day. Just the King of Fighters and Samurai Showdown, all those kind of fighting games. It was just my favorite thing ever. But
Greg, were you one of those kids in the neighborhood that had a Neo Geo?
I eventually got one, but it took a lot of. That's a whole story in itself. I wanted to be that kid real bad.
I knew.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had to ask, man. If you had one, you were like, Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it cost $650 in the '90s. Like today, and the games were $200 in the '90s.
Right.
Yeah. So those numbers are insane by today's standards. But Samurai Showdown was worth $200. It was like that good. Anyway, so it's good. I'm happy that company is like still around and still making good fighting games. It really kind of takes me back. And I really want to play the new Phoenix Wright. That's the other thing that I just got and haven't really sunk my teeth into yet for the DS. The last Phoenix Wright game I thought was really great. It was like my favorite one since the original. It's just a really fun series for people who've never tried it. It feels very fresh. Like, how many games do you get to be like an anime lawyer, right? It's like, it's just inherently, it's silly, it's fun, has great characters, great storytelling. I love those games. So
nice.
Yeah, I've heard good things about the new Phoenix Wright. I haven't played it yet, myself, but I've heard good things about the new one.
Yeah. Hey, Greg. Real quick, we do have one question from the live chat. Sam Tolbert wants to know, what game are you most looking forward to this year?
This year, man. I guess we mentioned both of the obvious answers, right? It's like somewhere between Final Fantasy and Last Guardian, I guess. Maybe those are like the cliche answers, but like whatever. I'm like right in the target audience for both of those games. Let's say Final Fantasy. I mean, all like I don't know what to, like. Final Fantasy was my favorite thing ever for a long time. But I haven't felt the same way about it in a long time either. So I'm not inherently that psyched for it, but I have high hopes. And I really want to see how it all turns out and have my fingers crossed. And Last Guardian, I guess I feel similarly. Like I don't quite know what to make of it. But like that team has made such extraordinary stuff in the past that like I just really want to
absolutely
see how that thing shakes out.
Shadow Colossus, wow.
Yeah, Shadow of the Colossus was. I mean, if anything, I think my appreciation for that game only grew over time. I think I actually, if anything, I sort of didn't appreciate it enough when it first came out. But it's really stood the test of time in a pretty incredible way. So I'm trying to think of it. There's got to be some smaller stuff too that I'm forgetting. It's been a really good year for smaller games. Between stuff like Inside and The Witness and whatever else, just some pretty incredible stuff.
Did you play Firewatch?
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy it. Yeah, we know. It's my. Those guys are also based in San Francisco, Campo Santo. So it's our pleasure to know those guys. But I've been a fan of their work for some time because they started Campo Santo after working on the Walking Dead games at Telltale, which I thought were just amazing. So I really enjoyed what Firewatch did and the kind of storytelling there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite games this year too.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
What about any games? Let's fast forward to 2017. Anything in 2017 that you're looking forward to?
Man, what's coming out? There's got to. You mentioned that Horizon game actually looks really good.
It does.
It's every time. It seems like every time.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Now, isn't Monolith involved in that too? Aren't they involved?
Is it Monolith? It's Guerrilla, right? It's the Killzone guys.
It is the Killzone guys, but I thought Monolith was helping them with that or something.
Maybe. So whatever those guys. I mean, I'm like the last game those guys did was Shadow of Mordor I thought was freaking amazing. So if they make another one of those at some point, I am.
I hope they do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. It seemed like that game was a hit. So hopefully that'll be a thing that happens.
I haven't even played that yet. I gotta add that to my backlog.
Yeah, that game is.
I'll play that one, man. Yeah, I had a ton of fun with that one.
Man, it's like a. I don't know what else.
You mentioned Last Guardian. That's probably 2017.
But yeah, I think these days I'm in the thick of production on Pyar right now, so it's like my own playing games recreationally time has dropped off quite a bit in recent months, unfortunately. So
yeah.
I want the game I'm working on to be done with, so I can get back to catching up on everything else that I've been missing out on.
Nice.
I will likely be missing out on early next year.
I forgot Persona 5 is coming out too.
Oh yeah. That's next year in like it's out in Japan now, right? But it's not the localized version won't be it. Yeah. I think Persona 5 looks incredible.
Yeah, I think that's February as well.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah, that comes out.
Which one?
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves.
Oh right. From Rare, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that game had like a massive line at E3. They had like a. It was like one of the surprise hits at E3. I think. I heard. Yeah. I didn't get to play it myself, but I heard really good things.
I've heard some good things about it too. It seems like it's the one exclusive more recently Microsoft's been really pushing. Like they're talking about it a lot.
Yeah, I heard Sea of Thieves and Zelda Breath of the Wild had two of the longest lines, and from what we heard, Breath of the Wild had a 2-hour line just to see it, not even play it.
And Scalebound.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in Scalebound.
I am because Bayonetta 2 was was I want to
Yeah,
those guys make some really good stuff.
I don't know. I just
yeah.
I was gonna say, Greg, that trail or that the in game they showed at E3 it didn't
The boss
it
fight.
just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I'm concerned about scale build.
That's why I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm still looking forward to it because I mean, Platinum, they're very underrated. You know, in some of the stuff that they do. Like Vanquish was one of my favorite games from last gen that awesome. I don't think many people played.
Yeah.
You know, but Vanquish was an awesome game. You know, Bayonetta
was fantastic.
You know, and I love Nintendo for stepping in and making sure Bayonetta 2 happened.
Yeah. Because
again, I think a lot of gamers ignore Bayonetta, you know, on 360 and PS3. So
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I just wasn't what I saw at E3. I was kind of like, just didn't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you there, Enrique, but it's still on my radar.
Yeah.
I think we saw about 0.34% of the game during that demonstration at E3. So let's not go basing our opinions on the entirety of the game just on that. Yeah.
I am a gamer. I will base my opinion on 3 seconds.
But I think Scalebound's another game. Just like we were talking about games that get announced like too early and shown too early. I think that was kind of the issue with that game.
E3 creates that weird. It like puts developers under a weird pressure to want to just show something when maybe It's strange to me because I think there are a lot of cases of games that don't get announced too early where they really benefit from that. Like, and some of the biggest developers in the world do it this way. Like Rockstar does not announce GTA like 2 years in advance. They announce it like 6 months before it's out. They do like a media carpet bombing for 6 months, and then it comes out and becomes the biggest game ever. And they've been doing this for years, so it's like it works for them. And Bethesda just did it with Fallout 4, where they're like, "Hey, and by the way, it's almost done. It'll be out in like 3 or 4 months," and everyone just totally loses it. And then
oh my god, yeah, and then spends 400 hours in the game and still hasn't clocked the story.
Yeah, but so yeah, I'm all for games not being announced. Like if the game is more than a year out, I don't really want to know about it personally.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So Eric, what are you playing, man?
Let's see. I'm playing
nothing.
I'm not playing much of anything. No, I'm playing Recore. Still working on that one. Jump back into Destiny with you guys. I got to get the Rise of Iron, get that working.
Yes, you do.
Yep. I will take care of that shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Fire Emblem Birthright, and still working on my I shouldn't say downtime, but when I'm kind of on the road and sitting somewhere. And actually, knowing that we were going to have you on, Greg, I went back in, started playing Transistor again and Bastion.
Yeah, right on.
So yeah,
nice.
That's kind of where I'm at. And other than that, having a 2-year-old running around, you know what my life is like.
Yeah.
So,
I know the feeling, Eric. I know the feeling, man. Yeah.
But she is getting into games herself. Like she's playing some tablet games, and she likes to grab the Wii U gamepad and mess things up, hit buttons, move things that I can't find. So
yeah. The other day I handed my 5-year-old nephew my PS Vita because they just like literally live with their tablets in their hand. And I was like, put that thing down. Come over here. And I gave him my Vita, and his eyes were just wide open. He just did not stop staring at it for ages. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Sarah tries to grab my Vita. I'm not there yet. She can mess with the Wii U gamepad because that thing's somewhat indestructible. But I don't want to drop my Vita yet.
Yeah.
So.
I need to get a Vita. I feel like I'm the only one who doesn't have one.
You are.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like the only one in the world. Get on that.
Yeah. So Bella, what do you play?
Well, so there is some of that. So for the last week, my main focus has been on that final bit of a grind in Destiny to try and finish up the book that I had active for the Taken King, because I didn't really put a lot of time into making sure I progressed through that, and then I realized that oh my god, this thing has a lifespan on it. Better move on that. So worked through a fair bit of that, but a lot of this week has actually been spent, ironically, playing Forza Horizon 3, which, might I add, whilst is in the most beautiful country in the world, Australia, I am my first gripe. Australians do not talk like that. That's not how we sound. So when you play the game, people, and you hear the Australian accents, you don't actually sound like that.
Really?
But
That's gonna bring the meta score down, Bella.
Oh no! Don't
but yeah,
oh my God.
3, absolutely mind-blowingly stunning and a crap ton of fun. Plus seamless, change between your controller and your steering wheel as well, which is a really big plus. Obviously, Rise of Iron came out, and the launch was a bit of a debacle. So we were sitting there at 7 p.m. Australian time, and we all logged on. It was like error, and sent you back to the searching screen. Error. So anyway, that went on for about an hour and a half, and then finally a queue came up. I was like, oh, we're going to be put in a queue, and then we'll be put on the server. Excellent. You are now 298,334 in the queue. It's like, what?
Wow.
So yeah, that took most of the night, but I stayed up and I got on. And Rise of Iron, oh my God, it's so good. And the music in it, music is the best. The
music
best
is incredible
that I have heard in almost any video game in a very long time. It is fantastic. There is nothing that sets the atmosphere as well as what having a good piece of music to accompany it does. And they have absolutely nailed that. Oh, what else have I been playing? A bit of Elder Scrolls Online, amazingly enough. So I've been getting into that a little bit. On my Vita, I've been playing Borderlands 2 because, well, it's Borderlands. And on PC, I've been back and forthing a bit with the game. We just shipped on VR, so I've been playing a bit of Hotel Blind and just working through some of the stuff that's coming up with as issues in that. And
Greg Bella actually did some voiceover work with Christian Allen.
Yeah. For which game?
So I did the voiceover work on Hotel Blind, and now we've moved on to working on Epsilon, so we can get that out of early access and onto consoles.
Nice. That's cool. Did you enjoy that work? It's fun stuff.
I did, yeah. I think the benefit that I had there is working with Christian Allen, for somebody who is such a professional and everything. He's been in the industry for so long. He's so good at being able to convey to you exactly what he wants that it was basically one take for every line, sent it over, and it was done. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's great to see it come to being available for actual gamers to go and play and provide their feedback on, which is just an absolute spin out. So now it's just sort of back to the drawing board for Epsilon, and putting more of a design focus on where I'm going to the studios. So yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, I've actually been playing like Bella and a lot of others, Destiny, Rise of the
like everyone.
Yeah, like
not
everyone.
Just a lot of others.
Everyone. Yeah. So and I will be trying to tackle the raid hopefully this weekend. I was trying to do it today. I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm playing Deus Ex. Still trying to get through that, and playing Bastion, and I think that's and Fallout 4. So that's what I'm focused on right now in my gaming time. So
I think we're always going to be playing Fallout 4. Like, I haven't gone back to it in the last week, so that's why I haven't mentioned it. But like I said, I've put like over 400 hours into that game and somehow managed to avoid finishing the storyline, because once I get to the end of the storyline, I feel like I'm done. So I want to rinse all the DLC as much as I possibly can before I go back and I finish up the storyline. So I think Fallout 4 is one of those games that we're just like going to continuously always be playing until Fallout 5.
Oh, that's going to be me with The Witcher 3.
Yeah, your daughter's going to be in college on that one too.
Sarah's going to go to college, or I'll put it in my will. I'll put it in my will. Hey, babe, when I'm gone, it's on you to finish that. Witcher 3
I'm telling you, The Witcher 3 is still my. And by the way, John from Super Deformed Gamecast, our sister podcast, which goes live 9 p.m. Thursday nights, is in the live chat. I just want to say, John, The Witcher 3 is the best game this console generation so far, not Dark Souls 3. And I'll leave it at that.
He's gonna lose it.
Yeah.
I need to get back on Witcher 3. I didn't play the DLC, and I heard it was just. I heard it's like even better than the base game. So it's like, yeah, that game is, for me. It's like, it's almost painful how good that game is. As like a game developer, it's like, ah, man.
It is so good. It's funny. I was telling Eric, I went back and played The Witcher 2. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I can't play this. I got to go back to the 3 because it's such a vast improvement, I thought.
Yeah, it's funny. I loved Witcher 2 also, and I know what you mean. I remember being so skeptical of it going like open world because I really liked the kind of the focus of 2, and the open world of 3 is just crazy to me. Like how they pulled it off. How it's just this kind of like perfect balance of, it feels so real to be in, and yet it's not incredibly boring like so many open world designs. The problem with
that's so true.
The problem with the real world is like, you start walking in a direction, kind of nothing happens, right? It's like, but Witcher 3, had the right density of cool stuff in it.
No,
Witcher 3
absolutely.
scares me.
Why does it scare you?
Scares you?
It scares me because I know how I play video games. And the amount of time that I put into Fallout 4 is a prime example. Yeah. I have to do everything. I have to visit every corner of the map. I have to check behind every single stone. I have to collect every collectible. Witcher 3 scares me because I have it on my PlayStation at the moment. Haven't loaded it. And I haven't loaded it because I don't want that to be the only game I play for the next 6 months. And I know that's what's going to happen.
See, Bella, that's what happened when you kept telling me to play Fallout 4. I'm like, I have The Witcher 3. I can't. I got like anxiety. I was like, I can't do it because I'm the same way. That's why Sarah will be finishing my Witcher 3 save because I have to do everything.
Yeah.
It's physically impossible to skip over stuff.
I got to get back to the DLC of The Witcher 3, Greg. I haven't touched it either, but I've heard the same thing. Just phenomenal. So, and I'm looking forward to their next game. I forget what is it? Something Cyberpunk something?
Yeah, they speaking of games that got announced a while back, they have that Cyberpunk 20 something.
Yeah.
2077 or something. I think that might be it. But 2077. I mean, it seems, after Witcher 3, it's like they get a like whatever they do next, right? Like a lot of people will be interested in it automatically, including myself. So those guys, they clearly put a lot of love and effort into their work. I feel like they have like they've got to be one of the most like beloved developers out there these days. They just
absolutely
delivered this game. They kept making it better with updates and all. It feels like well supported. It's a big giant game crafted with care. I think it's what a lot of game players wish more games could be like.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Greg, I know you're going to give us an hour, and we went over that a little bit. So.
Oh, no worries.
But hey, Greg, thank you again. By the way, it was great reconnecting with you after 14, 15 years. I really appreciate your time. We all do. And I know we're all looking forward to SuperGiant's next game. Hey, we'd love to have you back in the future.
You know where to find me.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for having me. It's fun talking to you guys. So
it's been great talking to you.
Yeah. Good to reconnect. It's good that we're still kicking and still doing this stuff after all this time. So
I know, right? Exactly.
Just goes to show the power of video games. Yeah,
for sure.
Well, that's a great point, Greg. There's guys that I actually met while I was doing the Xbox Live beta back in 2002 that I'm still friends with.
Yeah.
And I talk to these guys a lot. I mean, it's crazy. And that's right, Bella. That's the power of gaming. It can bring people together. So, Bella, I want to say thank you again. I know it's early morning. Hopefully, you're drinking coffee now.
Yeah, coffee. Let's call it that.
Yeah, you just need to move to the States.
No, I'm totally fine here. We actually have real freedom in Australia.
And Eric, as always, thank you, man.
Oh man, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, for those in the live chat, by the way, thank you for taking time out of your day, your Friday to join us. We saw a couple of regulars here. Big shout out to Sam Tolbert. Mike Mullis was in for a little bit from the original Next Level Gaming podcast. John was in from our sister podcast, Super Deformed Gamecast. Anyone else who I might have missed? Thank you again for popping in and hanging out with us this afternoon. And again, Greg, big thank you to you again. Big thank you to everyone who puts in all the hard work over at SuperGiant Games, man. You guys are doing great work. So
thank you.
So keep doing it. Yeah. We'll be back next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Other than that, we're probably gonna
do your little shout out for your sister podcast.
Oh yes. Be sure to check out the Super Deformed Gamescast, which goes live Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Great podcast. They've had some industry guests on as well. I was actually in a podcast with them. They had somebody from Naughty Dog. Forget it, Quentin.
Well, they had Shinobi yesterday.
Yeah, they had Shinobi.
Quentin Cobb.
Yeah, real cool. Greg, I got to talk to one of the Naughty Dog guys, Quentin Cobb.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he did a lot of the I think level design for Uncharted 4's multiplayer.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, really cool guy. So definitely check them out on Thursday night. So
speaking of amazing games released this year, that game was something else.
Oh,
yeah.
So much goodness!
What a great game! What an appropriate ending, too, by the way.
Yeah, the ending was I could go on. They've done. I mean, Neil Druckmann, or I guess there's more than one writer on the project, so it's also Josh Schur. But the Naughty Dog folks know how to put a good ending into a video game.
They do.
Oh, absolutely. And usually I'm like really keen to get a DualShock out of my hands as quickly as possible, but with that game, I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
And I say this to this day that The Last of Us is probably one of the best games I've ever played.
Yeah.
It was just
fantastic game.
Yeah, Eric, you and I always talk about that opening scene. I was just like punched you in the gut. You're like, whoa! But it set the tone.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thank you again for everyone who watched us live. Remember to check us out Tuesday nights. Give us a big thumbs up, a like, and give us a sub. Tell your friends about us. We're looking.
And be kind to each other on social media. Just do it. Be kind. It's really it's easier than being mean. Do it.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
And remember, gamers, to game on, and more importantly, have fun doing so, because that's what gaming is all about, as they say. So we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.
This has been another Beer Rap Podcast.